Well, it's only been 6 months. It's time for my semi-annual upload, it appears. And what better thing to do? Predict some NFL games like we did for the first video back in December of 2021. Why not predict some good games besides the Cowboys-Titans game, which was Thursday night? Just a little bit of comment on that one. Cowboys won 27-13 in a decent game, I'll say. Dak Prescott looking worse than Derek Carr is pretty scary for the Cowboys, I would say. The Titans basically fielding a squad that would probably be a bunch of people that you would claim off of waivers at this point, the way it was with injuries to Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis being really a healthy scratch, for being honest, for next week. But still, interesting in those games. But still, we have 15 more games to predict. We're going to start with the Dolphins and the Patriots. According to Google or Bing, whatever browser I have open, New England is favored to win. Now, New England, they are known for their stifling defense. They're known for their good running game. Obviously, also known for the era of Tom Brady. This team can win in any given Sunday. Well, any team can, but especially a team led by Bill Belichick. One of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach in NFL history. However, in the last couple of weeks, they've had some questionable errors happen. I mean, I'm going to go back and cite the Raiders game, especially with Jacoby Meyer kind of tossing the ball backwards to Chandler Jones. That was a lost opportunity where they could be 8-7 opposed to 7-8. And as well in the Bengals game, a rough 22-0 run for the Bengals kind of had the Patriots out of that one, losing that one at the end. But the Patriots have a very good shot to win this game. The Dolphins without Tua Tagovailoa due to another concussion. Prayers up for Tua. I'm hoping he's okay this time as well. But Teddy Bridgewater can play some quarterback. There's a reason why he was a first-round pick back in 2014. And if it wasn't for injuries, he could still probably be the Vikings starting quarterback to this day if things would have played out a little differently. However, even though the Dolphins have a very good supporting cast, you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Mike Gesicki really hasn't done much this year. In that department, kind of two running backs, most there as their main one. Kind of Jeff Wilson Jr. being used as well. I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one. Ramondre Stevenson, if he plays, I believe he has a questionable tag. He has it every other week at this point, so I have no clue if he's playing or not. I believe he is. I think he'll lead a nice running attack for the Patriots. Patriots 27-20 over the Dolphins. Both teams go to 8-8, go into Week 18, both needing a win to clinch a playoff spot. All right, now, time for my hometown Cleveland Browns at the Washington Commanders. It's going to be a good game. Washington's favored to win this one. A little bit of an interesting one here for Carson Wentz, because if you look back to 2016, the Browns traded their first-round pick to the Eagles, which was the second pick of the 2016 draft. Who was selected with that pick? Carson Wentz. Obviously, Carson Wentz has bounced around, went from the Eagles to the Colts, and now is with the Commanders, back starting after Taylor Heineke struggled in the 37-20 loss, I believe it was, to the Niners last week. Carson Wentz came in, I believe, like 12 for 16, somewhere around there. He didn't play bad, but Ron Rivera is going to go with Carson Wentz. My issue with Carson Wentz, we've seen it even with injuries not being his fault. He is not there for a team when they need him the most. The Commanders need to win this game against the Browns. They know they can win this game. The Browns, their season's over. They're trying to get not even a better draft pick. Their pick's in Houston. This is probably a get-right game for Deshaun Watson in the offense. I mean, 10 points against the Saints is not good. I know the weather wasn't good, but they could have easily won that game and still be in contention. Everything else that needed to happen for the Browns to be in a spot to make the playoffs happened last week. However, with all that said, I am going to give the slight edge to the Cleveland Browns. Is it personal bias? Even if it is, I do not feel bad one bit predicting the Browns to win this game. Carson Wentz this year for the Commanders has not won many games. Taylor Heineke won 5 of their 7 games. I have to go with, if Taylor Heineke was starting this game, I would go with the Commanders. However, I got to give it to Nick Chubb and the Browns. Browns, I'm going to say it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a rough 20-17 grinded-out victory for the Browns. A late touchdown towards the end of the game, kind of in the dying moments. Nick Chubb maybe scoring that one, breaking the heart of the Commander fans at home, going into a must-win Week 18 matchup in the NFC. All right, game number 3, the Cardinals versus the Falcons. Atlanta is favored to win. A new quarterback's in town, Desmond Ridder, the Cincinnati graduate from last year's Final Four. Listen, Desmond Ridder did well in college. I don't think it's going to translate to the NFL. I am sorry, Falcons fans. I know you like this kid. I hope he plays well. Don't get me wrong, an Ohioan at heart, I really hope that Desmond Ridder finds the NFL and he's able to find his footing. I don't think he will. I think he'll be around for a couple years and then a serviceable backup at best, but I think he's going to struggle in this game. The Cardinals, yeah, they're not the best of teams, but they still held Tom Brady last week. 19 points, and that 19 went to overtime. They held Tom Brady to 6 points for 3 quarters of football, with those kicks being from Ryan Suckup. I'm just saying, the Falcons, I don't think they're going to be able to easily score against the Cardinals. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is out. Yes, the Cardinals have had every issue possible at the quarterback position. I gotta trust James Conner in the offense here for the Cardinals. I think it's going to be an ugly matchup for both sides. I think we're going to see a lot of scoring for both teams, kind of. But I'm going to put this one near the realm of the Patriots-Dolphins, 27-24 in favor of the Cardinals in this one. Yes, it's in Atlanta, but sticking with the Atlanta Falcons culture, they're going to choke a lead. All right, now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They take on the Houston Texans. The Jags, this is a must-win game. Here's my logic behind that. In reality, is this a must-win game with the Titans loss, or even with the Titans if they won that game? No, it's not. They could still make the playoffs at 8-9. However, do you really want comments basically being said, oh, you don't deserve to make the playoffs, you only made it for the sole fact of your division, kind of like the Commanders in 2020? Do you really want that to be labeled to your team? I mean, yes, this has been a tremendous turnaround for the second half of the season. Trevor Lawrence, I'm starting him in a fantasy championship game tomorrow along with Evan Ingram. But still, do you really want to be labeled as a team under 500 in the playoffs? I mean, you get there, you get there, but you're going to play the Ravens or the Bengals, who will probably end up destroying you in that game. You might as well go in there with some dignity, at least going 9-8. With that, I think the Jaguars will win this game, even though the Texans did beat the Titans last week. I think it's going to be a rude awakening for the Texans. 35-10, I'm going to go with that being the score in this game in favor of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nothing against the Texans. I just think Trevor Lawrence, he's been too hot lately. 4 passing touchdowns, a pair of them go to the man of the hour, Evan Ingram. 8-8 going into the Tennessee game, which will probably be flexed to a Sunday night football game. The Jaguars are looking good. Alright, the next game, the Colts versus the Giants. The Giants are favored to win this game for obvious reasons. But Nick Foles, it's a weird one here. I mean, obviously you're going for a better or lower draft pick, but I don't believe the Colts have their pick. Actually, no, they do have their pick. Somehow, in some way, I believe they have their pick. But I don't get the reason of benching Matt Ryan. It's clearly going to be, you're moving on from him after this season. I mean, unfortunately, Matt Ryan, I think his career is done. I think the 33-0 lead blown, that's the last capping moment of his career. He could go somewhere else and probably sit the bench as a backup. I don't think he's going to start another game unless there's an injury in the NFL. I hate to say that for someone kind of in my generation. When I started watching football in 2012, that was kind of near his peak around there a couple of years later. So it's kind of sad seeing a lot of these guys. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, that kind of crop kind of being weaned out of the NFL. It's painful for me to see. But still, the Colts offense, no Jonathan Taylor, obviously out for the season on injured reserve. Michael Pittman being the main receiver you got there. They're not the best of teams, and the Giants are playing well this year. I mean, they've been a shock in the league so far. Saquon Barkley being number 4 in rushing yards with, 1,254 yards on the season. I mean, this is a good season for Saquon Barkley. Comeback player of the year, probably incoming for the 5th-year running back out of Penn State. I mean, he's played solid this year, even in the passing game. The Giants 8-6-1. If you win this game, you're basically in the playoffs. I'm trusting in Danny Dimes. I gotta trust the Giants in this one. I'm going to go with a 31-17 victory. The Giants are going to win this one at home. Nothing more said. The Giants are going to be in the playoffs for the first time since 2015, 2016. Very impressive what Brian Daboll has done in his first year here with reviving the career of Daniel Jones and kind of even the career of Saquon Barkley in that same breath. Broncos country, let's ride. They go play the Chiefs. Russell Wilson, as a Seahawks fan, my guy, Russell. Where there's a logo. Look at that. Look at that beautiful logo. Look at that beautiful camo. Very much love this hat. Russell Wilson, what's happening to your career, my man? It's painful to see in the same breath. It's kind of had it coming for him. You left Seattle to go and probably try to compete for a Super Bowl, and where has that gotten you? 4-11 in the toilet bowl of the NFL, potentially giving way for the Seattle Seahawks to draft your successor in the next draft. It's kind of a weird way of how this all worked out. I think Russell Wilson still has some years left in him. I think now Nathaniel Hackett being fired, I think he can have time to get his footing. You give him next year. If he struggles next year with the lineup around him, Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Javonte Williams, if he's healthy again next year. If not, you're probably going to draft a running back in the later rounds of that one. That could be a spot where you hope that Bijan Robinson falls, or even if you trade for a running back or sign one, like Alexander Madison, I believe his contract's running out, and you can get him from the Vikings. But if you give Russell Wilson the tools and he still struggles, you got to move on. It's painful, but they're kind of in a situation where they paid him enough money. They have to continue through with it. And the Chiefs, they're going for the number 1 seed. Must-win game, obviously, to get that week off for Patrick Mahomes and co. It's going to be a blowout game. I hate to say it, another struggle bus game here for the Broncos. Chiefs 42, Broncos 3. I'm going to say the Broncos don't even score a touchdown. I'm going to say McManus finds a way to get a field goal, but I think it'll be early in the game. I think the offense is going to stagnate. Brett Ripken will probably get some snaps and a quarterback, and if something is said between the Broncos O-line and Russell Wilson, I would not be surprised then if Russell Wilson is done. He's not going to play again in the final game of the season because you got to keep the locker room a little bit happy. There's clearly tension there. Unfortunately, I don't think this blowout is going to help anyone in this situation for the Broncos. Chiefs win 42-3. Next game. Next game being Panthers versus Buccaneers. You win and you're probably going to win the division. That is basically how this game is going to be set up between the Panthers and the Buccaneers. Obviously, the Panthers, if they win this game and then somehow lose in Week 18, oh no, look at that, we're not in the playoffs. It could happen, or we somehow could get a 7-10 division winner in the playoffs. Kind of like the NFC least of 2020. Yes, the NFC least, I'm going to call it as it is. But Buccaneers favored to win. You got to give it to Tom Brady. He has the clutch gene. I think he's going to clutch out a good victory here. And if you're the Panthers, coming this close to potentially ruining your shot to get another quarterback, I mean, Sam Darnold's played well. You got to move on. You got to get a quarterback in this draft. I mean, Matt Corral, I don't think is the option, especially with this injury he's had ruling him out the whole year. I don't think he's the option. Clearly, Baker Mayfield didn't work out because he's now having a career revival over in LA, but I got to give it to the Buccaneers. 23-17 overtime victory for the Buccaneers. I think the Panthers will keep it close. Obviously, the two-headed running game of Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. I believe both of them have done well in recent weeks. They're not going to play the best of the games, but they're going to do enough, I believe, to force overtime. Tom Brady finds Mike Evans in the end zone in overtime. Buccaneers win 8-8. The division is theirs, and they make it to the playoffs, probably with a date against the Cowboys or the Eagles, whichever team does not win that division. Next game, we have the Lions versus the Bears. The 3-12 Bears, 7-8 Lions. If the Lions did not struggle so much out of the gate, they'd be already locked into the playoffs. However, Dan Campbell's crew was unable to do so, starting, I believe, 1-6, but now being 6-2 in those last games, that's pretty solid. I mean, obviously the loss you had, I believe you lost to the Panthers last week. Yeah, you lost to the Panthers last week. That is not what you wanted to happen by any stretch of the imagination. You needed to win that game. You could be 8-7 and that much closer to clinching. However, I think it won't come to matter. I think Jared Goff will do enough. Amon-Ra, St. Brown, all those guys, I think will have a solid performance this week. I'm going to go with the Lions, but I think Justin Fields is going to keep this game close. 34-31 Lions victory, a high-scoring game. Dan Campbell, an inspired speech that we'll see on all our social media feeds on January 2nd. I think the Lions are going to win that one and get one step closer to the playoffs with Jared Goff under center. Next game, the 13-2 Eagles versus the 6-9 Saints. Even though Gardner Minshew is the starter in this game, nothing can be said about the Saints to make them be the favorite in this game. Alvin Kamara, yes, he's had an okay season. Not the season he's wanted to have by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not been his year. Not been the Saints' year, period, under Dennis Allen. I thought they'd do a lot better, especially what happened on that Sunday night game against the Buccaneers last year, with Dennis Allen being the head coach for that game with Sean Payton being out. I was very impressed, and I remember saying then that I think I would have been fine if Dennis Allen would have been the coach. However, he has kind of struggled in year one. 6-9, I mean, he'll probably lose this game. I think the Eagles are going to win this game. We'll get the prediction out of the way right now. 28-10 in that game. Eagles win. But if Dennis Allen continues to struggle in the next year, if he's kept, he's going to be out and probably go back to an offensive or defensive coordinator position. Kind of like what happened to Todd Bowles. Did he do bad with the Jets? By any stretch of the imagination, no. He had like a 9 or 10 win season and they didn't make the playoffs. There's nothing more he could have done. But he thrives under a coordinator role. I think Dennis Allen is going to be the equivalent to Todd Bowles. I think you're going to see something similar to that happen once again. Saints lose this one 28-10. Next game we got here on the docket, we have the first in the 4 o'clock hour. We have the 49ers versus the Raiders. The Raiders, I believe, somehow in some way, by a thread, are hanging on to being potentially able to get into the playoffs, which is incredible for the season they've had. I mean, looking at what's happened this season, obviously Derek Carr being benched, banished, fired, whatever you want to call it at this point, I believe he'll be pretty much cut right when the season's over. Jarrett Stidham, it's time to show what quality he has. He has 2 games that he could potentially, kind of by the skin of the teeth, get the Raiders into the playoffs somehow in some way. If he can show this here, he might be the future, even though the rumors of Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski kind of swirling to Vegas once again, even though it didn't happen in 2020. But the Raiders can be good. We've seen it this season. Josh Jacobs, he's had one heck of a season. Not being franchise technically, okay, I'll make my own value, leading the league with 1,539 rushing yards on the ground this season. I mean, he's impressed me especially. I mean, I run 6 fantasy football leagues. One of them is a dynasty. After this past season, one player I did have to let go, unfortunately, because we capped at 23 players kept. Josh Jacobs did not make the cut for me. And it proves how dumb I was in that decision. Yes, I have Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, but still, Josh Jacobs warrants to be on that squad. Same thing, you can make the argument Tyler Lockett and that one another player had to get rid of, but Josh Jacobs, a very good season. I would expect more things to come. Will the Raiders pay him? If I'm the Raiders, I would not, because we've seen how replaceable running backs are in the draft. I mean, Travis Etienne for the Jags, there you go. Even if they did not draft him, James Robinson would have sufficed in Jacksonville. Michael Carter, if Breece Hall was not drafted by the Jets, would he have sufficed in New York? Yes, he would have. Both of those guys now being teammates are kind of misfits. They're late round picks that worked. Kenneth Walker, a 2nd round pick, replacing Chris Carson. And also replacing Rashad Penny, who will be out of Seattle after this season. We've seen running backs being able to easily be replaced. So I think Josh Jacobs will be his final 2 games with the Raiders. Same thing potentially with Devontae Adams. With that being said, you got to comment on Brock Purdy here. Brock Purdy has a very good job. Mr. Irrelevant now to being a starting quarterback, potentially being in the name hunt of Rookie of the Year. I mean, I've seen his name thrown out there. Could he win it? Yes. Will he win it? I mean, I don't think so. There's always a chance. If the Niners do really well and he puts up some good stats and they end 13-4, he could easily do that. Will they get to 12-4? I think they will easily get to 12-4. I think it'll be a high-scoring 38-28 ball game. The Niners are going to look good. Brock Purdy going to look solid again. All right, now we go down to the 7 and 8 teams here. The Jets and the Seahawks. This game being at Lumen Field for my Seahawks. The Jets being favored to win this game. The Jets have a lot of issues. Where do we start here? Do I start at the receiver or do I go to quarterback? We're going to start at quarterback here. Zach Wilson, he will not be on the roster past January 10th. Or not. Past January 8th. That's when the season ends, basically. If the Jets don't make the playoffs, he'll be done. His bags will be outside. You'll see the clips of Jamal Adams trying to get back in the Jets facility, but just have Zach Wilson's face on him. He'll be out of the facility. He's not being brought back. He has the same stats, basically, as Jamarcus Russell. Unfortunately, his career, unless he can revive it somewhere else, is probably done. Could we see him in a month's time in the XFL? Maybe at this point. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't rule that out for the BYU talent. There's obviously some talent there, but just didn't work out. Mike White being back will be good for the Jets, however. The running back room. James Robinson, I think he's out injured. Breece Hall, obviously, out for the year. Michael Carter not being used at all. I believe Zach Knight's the main running back. So you have those struggles. And then you obviously had the mid-season issues of Elijah Moore not being targeted, yada, yada, yada. Even before the season, not many people are talking about this, but Denzel Mims basically tried forcing his way out. They didn't trade him. No one has talked about that since the Elijah Moore incidents happened, but We gotta remember this. Denzel Mims did not want to be there. So looking at the receiving core, that leaves you like Corey Davis, who just wanted to be there. That's it. The Jets are going to struggle in this game. I think Seattle will own them in this game. Tariq Woolen, a lockdown corner, potentially defensive rookie of the year in a world where Sauce Gardner doesn't exist. So you're going to see that kind of battle. DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, one of the best cornerback duos in the league versus Tariq Woolen. Starting to rebuild the Legion of Boom with Jordan Brooks. I think it will be a very good game played for both sides in some capacity. I think the Jets will kind of run the first half. Seattle, we've seen them come back in the second half before this season. We've also seen them squander leads in the second half. However, looking at Seattle, Geno Smith, he still has something to prove against the Jets after what happened there, being drafted 39th overall in 2013. He has something to prove. I think Geno Smith will ball out, have an excellent game, and it will turn out to be a shootout for the ages. 38-35, Seattle wins on a Jason Myers last-minute kick. I think Seattle's going to do just enough in this game, 8-8, and get that much closer to a playoff berth once again without Russell Wilson. All right, now we go to the 425 games. We have two of them. The first being the battle for LA, the Rams versus the Chargers. The Rams obviously out of the playoffs versus the Chargers, who are still in the playoffs. I have a weird theory about Baker Mayfield. I mean, many people have said this. He is a primetime quarterback now for the Rams. Put him in a primetime game and random circumstances, he's going to play well. Otherwise, no, he's not going to play well. I mean, in the same breath, he didn't do well on Monday Night Football at Lambeau Field. They're kind of held to not that many yards, but every other week it seems not Russell Wilson. I mean, he's probably playing better than Russell Wilson at this point. Baker Mayfield has done well. Will he do well against the Chargers? I think he'll do a solid job. I think Cam Akers, a career revitalization is possible at this point. We thought the relationship between the Rams and the aforementioned Akers was done. Cut off. He was getting traded. No. He stuck around, probably not by any choice of his own. Just they weren't able to find a trade, but he's done well the last couple of weeks, I do have to say. If he can continue to do that, he's playing his way into staying there and the Rams not having to get another running back, even with Kyren Williams waiting in the wings and Darnell Henderson being weirdly cut. That was very weird. I'm not asking questions or anything along those lines, but I don't know why they cut him. It doesn't make sense. Unless something happened behind the scenes, it does not make sense to me. But I'm going to go with the Chargers in this game. Even if Eckler doesn't play, he's with questionable tag. I think he'll play. I think the Chargers win this game in a tight one regardless. I mean, I've thrown around some games in the 20s. I want to say 31-21 favor of the Chargers in this one. All right, now the 7-8 Packers versus the 12-3 Vikings. I believe it was Jair Alexander who came out and said, last time was a fluke for the Vikings and Justin Jefferson, who leads the league in receiving yards, I should say, with 1,756 yards on the year, almost able to break the 2,000 if he plays well in these last two games. But the Packers are favored in this one, believe it or not. I do have to agree with that. Starting 4-8, winning the last three games, I think the Packers are going to do just enough. Aaron Rodgers has just enough of the clutch gene in him. I think they're going to win this game in a tight overtime battle. I've said the word tight many times about these games. 27-24 in overtime. If Christian Watson plays, it really doesn't play a factor into the score. If not, it was going to go to a lot of them. Could go to Romeo Doubs or even Allen Lazard. I could see that possibly happening. But 27-24 in a tight game. Packers win this one, go to 8-8. When you're in basically in week 18, and that's where they want to be. All right, we have two more games. Ravens-Steelers. In prime time, the 10-5 Ravens without Tyler Huntley against the Steelers. Do I do it? Do I make a bold prediction? I am going to make a bold prediction. If Lamar Jackson doesn't play, which I don't think Lamar Jackson will play, I'm going to check that real quick as we speak. If Lamar Jackson doesn't play in this game, let's see here. Will he be playing? He has been ruled out. All right. That's all I needed to know. Lamar Jackson being ruled out, Tyler Huntley being the quarterback. I'm a big fan of Tyler Huntley, don't get me wrong. Mike Tomlin has never had a season under 500. I think by somehow and some way, the Steelers will win this game in spectacular fashion. I could see TJ Watt making a touchdown somehow on defense. I could see a pick six towards the end of the game. I think the Steelers are going to grind out a tough victory, 17-14 in an all-time classic game. Mike Tomlin will have 0 plays where he's on the field, luckily this time around. And, Thanksgiving where he stepped in Jacoby Jones' path. We're not really going to talk about that, even though he didn't know what was going on. That's besides the point. Steelers win this one 17-14 in a tight game. It's going to be a tale of the defense. TJ Watt going to show why he should be still considered a top defensive player, even though he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year. That will probably go to Nick Bosa. He's also out for a lot of the year. I think TJ Watt's still going to be reminding people of, hey, I know my brother says he's retiring, but just look what you got for the next at least half a decade. You got me, and it's going to be very scary. Final game, the Buffalo Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a very tough one to predict. The Bills and the Bengals both have shown their struggles this year, but have both shown that they can play well. The Bengals lost on Monday Night Football to the Browns. As a Browns fan, that says a lot. The Bills, however, they should be 13-2. I remember watching that game against the Vikings, and I was like, how in the heck do you fumble on your own goal line? That was incredibly bad for them. Josh Allen's a good quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback, potentially top 3 in the NFL. Easily, don't get me wrong. That just did not end well for anyone involved in that game, unless you're a Vikings fan. I remember watching that. I was just shocked of all the different changes in that game. But in this one, I would expect a high-scoring affair. I'm going to say your highest-scoring game of the week. I'm going to say it ends in regulation, 45-42. I got to give it to the Bills. I have to give it to Josh Allen and co. Stephon Diggs struggled last week. He's not going to struggle this week. I would expect 2+ touchdowns at the rate we're going. Josh Allen, an all-time great performance for him. Joe Burrow, electric. Jamar Chase, electric. T. Higgins, electric. You're going to see a lot of good performances. Eli Apple being torched as he always is. Unless somehow in some way he changes his ways. I still think it's going to be crazy. 45-42, Bills Mafia, you take the victory. And with that comes to the end of our 15 predictions. I have not done this in a while. It's been 6 months. However, I am hoping in the new year to get some more videos up. I do have some ideas with some of the predictions I did on my Twitter account for the World Cup to kind of go over those, kind of why I said what I did, and then I'll go from there. So stay tuned for that. I'll have the social media links down below. I don't know what they're named offhand or what they're going to be named. I'm kind of trying to rebrand things a little bit here to make it more, presentable. I'm going to stay with Ohio Sports Guy, obviously on YouTube. Will the logo change from the base as it was last time? It might. I don't know what I'm going to make it for sure. However, either way, you're still going to be able to know how to find me. I'm going to link that down below. If you're new here, subscribe. I believe we have 4 subscribers. The last time I checked, 36 views in the last video. I'm hoping to get that up, hoping to upload more here. And obviously, the goal is just to bring some good sports content to you people at home. I love talking about sports. I played football for 1 year, and what I've learned in that 1 year is kind of giving me an appreciation of what these guys do, especially in an 18-week season, adding an extra game. Obviously, going in there for that camp, the first week that I had, it was incredible. It was kind of a wake-up call of how difficult this NFL thing is. And that's just at a lower level, still being that physicality. I will never forget those kind of moments, but it kind of helps me understand these players. You might see, oh, why did he miss that block? Or why did he do X thing? You understand it more once you've played. Once you understand why a team will do a certain play, like a certain concept, like why would you run inside opposed to outside? There's certain strengths you got to look at. And that's what I look with playing football. I played baseball. I still play baseball. I used to play soccer. I still know these things. But that's what I hope to bring to you guys. An edge, kind of knowing more of the concept of sports, but also being able to give you some good predictions that you can either be like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about, or kind of laugh at because they're kind of outlandish. I'm trying to bring you the best content I can as a sports person here, basically knowing sports as well as I do, but also bringing you some laughs, kind of helping you decompress. Hopefully a channel that you can go to at the end of the day. Oh, look who uploaded. I can listen to this real quick and kind of, give me a laugh or two before my evening's over. That's what I hope to be for all of you. And with that takes us to the end here. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. I'll have my social media down in the description below. Hopefully I'll be seeing you guys soon. If not, I'm wishing you all a very happy new year. And good luck with whatever you do. And then just understand, if you put your mind to anything, and I mean anything, you can be something great. And believe that in yourself, and believe in yourself. Trust me, you'll get you far. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.